Good morning children. Today we will discuss about the different sectors. We have already studied private sector, public sector. We are going to study about the two types of other sectors, public and private sectors based on the ownership of the industry. Previous classes we studied about other sectors like primary sector, secondary and tertiary sector, then organized and unorganized sector. Based on the ownership of the industry or asset or property, we are again classifying these sectors into public and private sectors. From these terms itself, you can understand what is public sector and what is private sector. In the public sector, we know that the government is the owner of the industry or establishments, or government owns most of the assets and provide all services. In the private sector, ownership of assets and property, all delivery of services are in the hands of private individuals or private companies. We know that private persons also can establish industry in our country. We know ours is a mixed economy there. That means some of the industries are based or owned by the government and some of them are by the private industries also. We can say some examples, railways or post offices, these are in our country are owned by the government only, not private sector. But some other industries like Tata Iron and Steel Company Limited, Reliance Industries, these all come under private sector. These are privately owned. So activities in the private sector are guided by the motive of earn profits. Their main motto is to earn profit in the private sector. To get such services, we have to pay money to these individuals and companies. So the purpose of the public sector is not just to earn profit. In the private sector, we know when we need to pay the money for buying any goods from the private sector. Okay, in the companies or any for their services also we have to pay. But in most of the cases, most of the government sector or the public sector, the main motto of the government is to provide service or to the people. We know that education, medical facilities, when we are going to the government hospital or joining in the government school, we need not to pay anything there. These services are provided freely to the public by the government. But for that, the aim of the government is providing service, welfare of the people, not earn profit. Okay, so that how government can run or government works or earn money for it. Government collect other taxes. Okay, there are other ways of collecting money from the people by the government in the way of taxes or other sides of revenues they are collecting. We know that there is a road tax, we are paying house tax, land tax, industries tax, professional tax, like that many types of taxes government is collecting. Okay, so here there are several things needed by the society as a whole which the private sector will not provide at a reasonable cost. We know that some cases the private sector cannot provide the people in a reasonable cost. Many of the things are there, especially suppose we are taking the example of roadways or railways which are constructed by the government. Private sector cannot take place in this sector also. Okay, so here collecting money from the thousands of people who use these facilities is not easy. Now when we are using the roadways, we are paying the road tax. Okay, but the government can construct the roads or railways, etc. Arranging all these public facilities, we can say public facilities, these are providing drinking water, safe drinking water facility, roadways, railways, all these are the provided by the government only, or construction of bridges or harbors or generating electricity, providing irrigation through the dams, etc. These are all coming under the public sector. So government takes only a very low taxes from the people for all providing these facilities. Okay, so thus governments have to undertake such a heavy spending and ensure that these facilities are available for everyone. It's not without discrimination, which is provided to every person, every citizen of the nation. So some activities which government has to support are the private sector may not continue their production or business unless government encourages it. Also government has to support the private sector also, in order to improve that. Reliance industries, for example, we can say government supports this type of Tata and steel industry also. There is government support also, okay, and otherwise they cannot exist or survive their industry in the country also. So for example, selling the electricity at cost of generating may push up the cost of production of goods in many industries, many units, especially small scale units. So here many industries, they need electricity, very high cost electricity. If their government is providing, industries may not survive. So subsidy rate or reducing the rate to the commercial purpose or industrial purpose, the government is providing the electricity also in order to help the industries, so that these industries can provide employment opportunities to the many people. So as we know that government cannot provide job opportunities to all the people of our country, so that it can also regulate the rules and regulations of the government in these industries also. Okay, so here the government of India buys wheat and rice from farmers at a fair price. It stores in the godowns and sells at a lower price to the consumers through ration shops. We know that government buys minimum supporting prices enacted by law in our country. So government buys this type of food grains from the farmers at a reasonable rate. But through the public distributing system or PDS or through the ration shops, the government provides very cheaply these food grains to the poor people in our country. How government can do it? Because suppose they are buying rice or wheat for 8 rupees from the farmer, they are sold in the ration shops for 1 or 2 rupees only. So it's a great loss for the government, but government finds out other ways to earn money or make up this loss. Okay, so here because the government is collecting taxes or revenue in different forms. Now here there are large number of activities which are the primary responsibility of the government, like the government must spend on these providing health and education facilities. We know that these are also completely freely provided by the government. Education and health facilities are provided by the government completely freely. So we have discussed some of these issues in the first chapter also. Running proper schools and providing quality education, particularly in the elementary education, is the duty of the government. We have made the law or enacted the law that elementary education should be compulsory free in our country, and it's a fundamental right also. So that the government is providing complete free education and health facilities also. Government establishes primary health centers in the rural areas and government hospitals, medical colleges, etc. So in order to provide free health facilities or medical facilities. Also here we know that nearly half of India's children are malnourished also, and a quarter of them are critically ill. They are not provided, they are not getting sufficient nutritious food to the children. So infant mortality rate of Odisha is 45 or Madhya Pradesh is 47, that is higher than some of the poorest regions of the world. In our country, some regions are infant mortality rate is high. We can say in the poor regions of the world have better infant mortality rate. Okay, so you know that the government also need to pay attention to aspects of human development, such as the availability of safe drinking water, which is scarce in many parts of many regions of our country. Availability of safe drinking water and housing facilities. Many people do not have, poor people do not have food and nutrition and housing facilities also. These are all the basic needs of the people that government has to take care. It is also the duty of the government to take care of the poorest and most ignored regions of the country through increased spending such areas. So here government has to allot funds to the regions which are backward. So many regions are ignored by the government, that has to be taken care, and so that our country will be improved or developed socially and economically.